Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of Çatalhöyük, the 9,000-year city without streets. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. 9,000 years ago, in what is now south-central Turkey, as many as 8,000 people lived together in one of the world's first cities. But Çatalhöyük, one of the largest and best-preserved Neolithic settlements ever found, was unlike any city we would recognize today. It had no streets, no public spaces, no obvious hierarchy of buildings. People entered and exited their homes through holes in the rooftop. They buried their dead under their floors, sleeping for generations above the bones of their ancestors. Çatalhöyük challenges nearly every assumption we make about how human societies organize themselves. How could thousands of people live together in such density without the organizing structures, streets, markets, governance buildings that we assume are necessary for urban life? The answer to that question reveals something profound about the range of ways human beings can organize their lives. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Catastrophism, the idea that Earth's geological and cultural history has been shaped by sudden, violent events rather than gradual processes, was once the dominant paradigm in science. It was then largely displaced by uniformitarianism, the principle championed by Charles Lyell in the 19th century that the present is the key to the past, and that change occurs slowly and continuously. The pendulum has since swung back. Modern geology and astronomy have confirmed that catastrophic events, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, rapid climate shifts, have profoundly shaped Earth's surface and life upon it. The Chicxulub impact that ended the Cretaceous is the most famous example, but it is not alone. The Younger Dryas cooling event 12,000 years ago caused radical shifts in human habitat within decades, not millennia. The Bronze Age collapse 3,000 years ago ended multiple interconnected civilizations in a generation. These events matter for archaeology because they reset the evidence. A major catastrophe does not merely destroy a civilization, it destroys the record of that civilization. Survivors carry only what they can remember, and memory degrades with each generation. After a few centuries, the grandchildren of survivors have myths where their grandparents had engineering manuals. What archaeologists find when they excavate ancient sites is not the full picture. It is the fragment that survived the last catastrophe. The full picture may be forever gone, preserved only in the ambiguous traces that puzzle researchers to this day. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding Çatalhöyük, the 9,000-year city without streets, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Çatalhöyük was occupied continuously for approximately 400 years, from around 7,500 BC to approximately 5,700 BC. At its peak, it housed 5,000 to 8,000 people in a densely packed settlement of mud brick houses covering approximately 13 hectares. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the settlement's architecture is extraordinary. Mud brick houses were built directly against each other with no space between them. Residents accessed their homes through roof openings reached by ladders on the exterior, essentially walking over their neighbors' rooftops to reach their own homes. This roof city organization has no known parallel in the archaeological record. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Burials at Çatalhöyük were almost exclusively under the floors of houses, specifically under sleeping platforms. Families lived directly above multiple generations of their ancestors. Skeletal analysis shows that the same individuals were sometimes disinterred for skull removal, with skulls then displayed or reburied. The relationship between the living and dead was intimate and ongoing. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the walls and floors of Çatalhöyük houses were plastered and repainted repeatedly over the lives of the buildings. The plaster layers sometimes number in the hundreds. Wall paintings depict hunts, geometric patterns, and occasionally scenes of animals. The most famous image shows a map-like depiction of the town with a volcanic mountain, possibly Hasan Dağ, in the background, the oldest known map of a settlement. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of analysis of isotopes in teeth and bones shows that Çatalhöyük's population was surprisingly diverse. Individuals had grown up in different places before joining the settlement, suggesting it was a destination that attracted people from a wide region rather than a community of local origin. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: the society of Çatalhöyük appears to have been relatively egalitarian. No buildings have been identified as temples, palaces, or administrative centers. No burials show dramatically different levels of wealth or status. This apparent equality in a large, dense settlement is surprising given that most subsequent urban societies developed strong hierarchies. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. Equally puzzling to investigators, Çatalhöyük was excavated by James Mellart in the 1960s and reopened for excavation by Ian Harder beginning in 1993, becoming a model for collaborative and theoretically sophisticated archaeological practice. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics, Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain Çatalhöyük, the 9,000-year city without streets. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Çatalhöyük's architectural and social organization reflects a Neolithic community-based society where kin groups managed their affairs cooperatively without the need for centralized governance. The intimate relationship with ancestors maintained through underfloor burial created social cohesion without hierarchy, and the rooftop access architecture prevented the formation of a street-based public space that might have become a locus for power. This is the leading archaeological interpretation. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Çatalhöyük was organized around a shared symbolic and ritual life centered on the house and its ancestral occupants, with collective ceremonies conducted on the rooftops. The apparent equality of the settlement reflects a deliberate social choice to maintain community through ritual rather than economic hierarchy. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Çatalhöyük represents a dead end in urban experimentation, a form of large-scale settlement that proved unsustainable in the long run. Its abandonment after 400 years may reflect the accumulated social tensions of extremely dense communal living, without the release valves that streets, markets, and public spaces would have provided. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding Çatalhöyük, the 9,000-year city without streets, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes isotopic analysis of individual burials under house floors has traced family lineages and confirmed that specific house locations were associated with the same family line for multiple generations, consistent with a society organized around ancestral house attachment. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the absence of any public buildings, temples, or palatial structures across the entire 13-hectare settlement, confirmed by extensive excavation, is direct evidence against hierarchical organization of the kind found in later urban societies. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the map painting at Çatalhöyük, dated to approximately 7,200 BC and showing a settlement with a volcanic mountain in the background, is the oldest known urban map and confirms a sophisticated spatial self-awareness in the community. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding Çatalhöyük, the 9,000-year city without streets. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Çatalhöyük continues to be excavated under Ian Hodder's direction, providing an increasingly detailed picture of early urban life. The site challenges conventional models of how cities originate and function. Its discovery has shown that dense settlement, complex symbolic life, and long-term social stability can be organized without the hierarchical structures we usually associate with civilization, raising the question of whether those structures are inevitable or merely one option among many. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of Çatalhöyük, the 9,000-year city without streets, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Çatalhöyük ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.